They hate when you elevate. They stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, that's why I can levitate.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devan, and today we got a special guest. We got my boy Adolfo with us. I met him through the RBO Mastermind, and he's an entrepreneur. He's a veteran in the entrepreneur game with Active Networks, and he basically does like automations and audio and all that kind of stuff. So I'll let him explain that more in depth because honestly, it confuses me when he starts talking. But you know, his mindset, he's gone through a lot of stuff over the, how many years have you been in business? 15,
So
20?
we're going on 18 this year.
Okay, so
Yeah.
18 years in business.
A couple months.
So, he's been through those peaks and valleys. So today is gonna be huge for you entrepreneurs, especially if you're, aspiring to be an entrepreneur or you're early in the game. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm so happy we met.
Yeah.
We met, about a year ago now?
Yeah.
Almost a year?
Yeah.
So happy we met and, jumped on a call early on and, saw that you actually brought a lot of value. So
I appreciate
that,
it.
brother.
No, and it's crazy. We're actually like two of the local RBO people. We're both in the same valley, and knowing each other for a year, we finally, you get to see the gym and everything like that. So we'll be getting a workout in right after this. So let's start off. What got you started in entrepreneurship? Like, did you have a family member? Like, what led you to want to be an entrepreneur?
So I actually am the first one to own a business in my family. Frankly, I didn't want to own a business. Like, that wasn't the vision. I worked for a Fortune 500 company, made very good money, and I just decided one day, like, there's got to be more to life than this, right? Like, I don't want to wear the suit anymore.
Right.
So, as I went and I rised in the ranks, it was like, I'm not getting my hands dirty anymore. I'm not doing the stuff that I really love to do. And so I started venturing out, and it was actually on a plane ride back to LA where I just decided, like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to give this a try, and worst thing that could happen, I come back to the corporate world, right? And so I went to my boss and I said, hey, where do you see me 5 years from now? He said, in my seat. I said, no thanks, here's my resignation letter, I'm out, Didn't burn my bridge, right? I stayed there as long as I needed to. I gave them, 8-9 years of my life. But I learned a lot there, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's really what got me started. It wasn't, I want to go make more money. It was just like, I was just tired of the 9 to 5, 4 walls, right? I wanted something more.
So before I rewind and ask you a question on something you said, were you doing, like with Active Networks now, was that what you were kind of doing with the Fortune 500 company, or was it a different field?
So it was the same field, right? IT. So I went to school for information technology. So I'm a nerd. I embrace it. And so the beauty of it is the guy that I worked for, he didn't outsource anything out. And so even though I went to school for computers, right, and networking, he was like, you need to go learn cameras, you need to go learn audio video, right, so that you could do it all for us, and we don't have to hire anybody on the outside. And so that was extremely valuable, to how I went out on my own. I had all these certifications and all that under my belt.
Okay. So so it was like a transition that wasn't like completely like a left pivot, or all of a sudden 180, you're like going in a totally different field.
Yeah, no, I stayed in the same field. I wanted to go just B2B at the time, so I was like hitting like dental offices and stuff like that to do their computers, their telephone systems. My vision was never to go into a home and do home stuff, but life happens,
right?
And you pivot with it, right? And so what my vision was in 2006 to what we are today in 2024 is completely different than what I even had ever imagined.
That's crazy. So it's almost like a value point. Like sometimes when you get hired somewhere, right, you think you're getting hired just as an IT or just as this one aspect, and then your employer, your boss basically wants you to learn these additional skills that maybe aren't your main focus or what you like to do or even what you think you should be doing, but it's not something that you should basically shy away from. It's like, why not just learn the additional skills, and that all of a sudden now you're implementing everything today. So what's your take on like people when they're like, if you're just in sales and you don't want to learn the other aspects, or if you're just in IT and you don't want to learn how to do video, like, what is your feed on that?
I think that you got to stay open-minded, right? Like, you never know what the future is going to bring to you, right? And so for me, it was always like, and I'll tell you a story about, yesterday, I was sitting, with one of my clients who worked for that Fortune 500 company for 2 months.
Right.
He was a C-level employee, and we built a report in the 2 months. And here we are 24 years later, right? This was in 2000, and he's my client, and we're still friends, right?
Yeah.
And so because I left an open mind, right? Like, I didn't know where I didn't know where I wanted to go, but I also didn't know where life was going to take me.
Okay.
And so staying open-minded, like if somebody asks you, hey, you want to learn this, like take the opportunity, right? Because you never know how that's going to serve you in the future, or how you could serve somebody else with that knowledge in the future.
No, that's definitely powerful, because it's one of those things where if you keep that open mind, like you're saying, additional opportunities can be presented to you. But if you're closed-minded and you don't want to learn these additional skills, you may not be getting opportunities or chances that, if you didn't learn those skills to even have, right?
You're closing your own doors.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right?
Yeah, I mean, success is all about just having the opportunities presented to you and being able to take them. But if you're not open-minded and not keeping those opportunities even available to come to you, then again, your growth's gonna be stunted at some level, right? Totally. But I want to rewind to something that you said. It's huge, because it was similar to my transition into entrepreneurship. When you left the job, it wasn't like I'm quit, I'm out of here, right? You said something that was super powerful that I think not enough people take and hold it with enough weight, which was you didn't burn the bridge, right? So even though you were quitting, even though you wanted to do your own thing, you didn't burn the bridge. Why is that?
Frankly, I always feel like, we live in such what seems like a large world, but it's really such a small world.
Yep.
You never know when you're going to need somebody again, right? And so I always felt like, again, that company was really good to me. And even, my prior job, which was Kmart, right? Even when I quit Kmart, I was very grateful for the opportunities that they had given me. And so here it was the same thing. It was like, they taught me everything I know, right? Let me do whatever it takes to ensure that they're going to continue to be successful once I depart. And so, again, a lot of the stuff that I know now, I didn't know back then, but I knew that, hey, I don't want to burn bridges with people, because if this doesn't work, and even if I don't come back to this company, I might run into some of these people in the future.
Right, and I mean, that's huge too. It's, again, like you said, you think it's a big world, but you don't know who other people know. You don't know what relationships companies or people have with other people. So if you burn a bridge with someone, you don't know how many other bridges you're burning for your future, right?
Totally, yeah.
And then even just like, like you said, 20 years later, you're still collaborating with someone that you knew, back then, right? So if that bridge is burnt, or if all of a sudden things were said about you in the office because of that bridge being burnt, like that collaboration could have never happened. You may never have gotten that client, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about Active Networks. Like, what do you do? Like, I know you do residential, you do commercial, but what do you do as for your company?
I'm ready to confuse you again.
Yeah.
So Active Networks is we call ourselves tech integrators, right? So what we do is we take technology, whether it's something that you currently own or stuff that we're bringing in, to enhance the way that you live, right? And so we ask a lot of questions. We ensure that we're bringing in technology to elevate your life, right? So from audio, video, surveillance, lighting control, lighting design, and sometimes even construction, right? Like, we kind of do it all. That's what the company is all about, right? We're all about technology and creating positive experiences with technology. But beyond that, I like to be a resource to people, right? And so if I'm there and, I hear them struggling with a toilet or whatever the case may be, I'm like, hey, I got a really good plumber. You want me to call him and you guys could figure it out, or whatever the case may be, right? Like, and so people call me for everything, right? Like, hey, you have a glass guy, you have this guy, you have that guy. And yeah, I have a guy for everything, right?
Yeah.
So I just try to be resourceful.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that makes a lot more sense. I guess the first time I heard it in Rosarito, like, I was picturing like just like a home theater, and then I was like, man, but it sounds like there's so much more to it. So it's everything, from surveillance to anything that's pretty much like video, audio that could go on your house, or even like how you can do like the Alexa. I mean, obviously this is a little different, but like the Alexa, turn on the lights, or turn that kind of stuff,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So I mean, what do you do with, like, when someone hires you for commercial versus a residential? Is there like a specialty, or is there something that usually like commercial units want you for or residential units want you for? Is there a difference or is it pretty much the same?
There is a difference, right? So commercial is mostly like computer help, right? So helping them with like cloud services,
Okay.
like Microsoft, Google, that kind of stuff, and also phone systems, right? So a lot of companies are still running on old traditional phone systems, right, where they have what we call a PBX or a box on the wall that they have to maintain, and so sometimes we all know what happens to the ISPs of the world. They have downtime, and so what we do is we take them off that box, off of something that they have to continually maintain that gets antiquated, and put them on cloud services like voice over IP and that kind of stuff. So that's really what we do on the commercial side. We do a little bit of audio video, like video walls and stuff like that. Those are really cool projects.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like the lower end stuff. And then for residential, it's kind of like the whole game, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do we transform your home, right? Whether it's with lighting or with audio video, so that when you walk in, like if you're a football fan, right? I mean football,
Yeah.
not soccer. Sorry.
American football.
Sorry, not sorry. But maybe you're a football fan and you like to watch Monday Night Football, and so we'll set the house so that as soon as you get home, because you're carrying a phone, we know you're home, the house automatically transforms, right? It goes to your favorite channel. You don't have to do anything.
That's crazy.
You don't have to touch anything. You don't have to say a command like an Alexa command or anything like that. It just happens, right? So when we talk about automation, it's things that happen without you even thinking about, right? Shades going up and down, lights turning on and off, right? And so, we take it to the next level than what people call a smart home.
I mean, honestly, like that's what I was thinking about is, I don't know if you ever saw it, but when I was a kid, there was like a Disney movie. It was called Smart Home or Smart House or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but that's crazy because, I mean, it amazes me, like, even with your phone, like, all of a sudden you park and it's like, you parked here. It's like, how'd you know I even parked, right?
Yeah.
But so when you walk into your house and your house can just fully transform, like, that's awesome, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And I know you guys are in multiple locations now. I know you guys just moved to a new location, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
But you guys have multiple locations as well, right?
So we don't have like a footprint in other states, right? So what we're doing is we're hiring folks that are in other states that are killing it, that their values match our values, and we outsource the boots on the ground to them, and so we just send out like project managers into different states. So we don't say no to work. It doesn't matter where it is, right? Florida, we got a project in Florida right now that we're doing, and so it's about, again, creating that value, right, and bringing in the right people to fulfill that vision, right?
Okay.
And understanding that we don't know it all, right? I learned that a long time ago, right? It's not my way or the highway, right? Because there's people that know things or know how to do things better than I do, right? And so it's allowing them and empowering them to do what they do best.
No, definitely. So what was that like, or what was that thought process like, instead of opening up in another state, deciding to essentially affiliate or license, your name or your work to them? Because when they show up to the house, the client thinks that, it's you,
They're representing us, yeah.
Right. So what was that thought process like, or why did you decide not to basically open another office in another state and, find basically contractors or licensed professionals in those states?
So originally that was the deal, right? So I think the first state was Dallas, right? We got a big job in Dallas, and we all flew out there. Or some of us flew, some of us drove out there, and it was painful, right? It was painful in a variety of ways, because the clients here were starting to suffer, right? Because we weren't here to fulfill their needs. But also what I saw was the families of our employees, right, of our team, I started to see the effect that they were having, right? Like their kids being dropped off at babysitters, not being able to get picked up and stuff like that. Parents are getting sick and whatnot. And so for me, it's big. I'm big on family. And so I realized this isn't sustainable, first of all, right? And again, like, I don't have to do it all, right? Let's empower somebody else. Let's go out and network and meet people that, again, match in value. And, they're already in this state, right? So I basically go to them and I say, hey, what do you hate about your business? And it's usually the business side of things, right? We all love to do what we do, right? You love to work out and you love to see people transform. None of us love to do the paperwork, the back end stuff, right? And so essentially what I say is, hey, you do that very well. I do the back end stuff very well. If I take on the back end stuff, you down to partner and do something together, and we have an even split. And usually the answer is, yeah, absolutely, let's give this a shot.
Okay, so when you're talking about other states, then it's people that already own a business in that state.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's almost like franchising without franchising. It's like kind of like partnership kind of deal.
Totally.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought you were finding like a independent contractor and then basically licensing work. But okay, that makes sense. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's thinking outside the box, right? You know, someone that doesn't want to do that or is struggling business owners. Because I'm assuming, you being in California, you're not the only one in the country that does what you do.
Right.
Right. So what allows a client, or what makes, in your eyes, what allows a client to come to you being in California when they know that there's other people in their state? Right? Like what have you done in your 18 years of business to establish those core values or that, business footprint that people want to come to you even though you're across the country? I
think the biggest thing is building rapport, right? Like I've never been a transaction kind of person, right? And so it's always been about like, how much value can I bring to you, right? Like what kind of relationship can we build? And so, I keep thinking about yesterday's conversation, right? Because I met somebody new and they were so surprised that, here we are having dinner with a client, right? And he was like, there's nobody in the service industry that does this, right? Like you guys known each other for X amount of years, and you guys not only working together, but you guys are having dinner together, right? And so when we do that, people, again, I feel like people do business with people, and yeah, there's a bunch of people that are doing the same exact thing that we do, and some of them might even do it better. The difference is that I care. Right? And that I build that relationship. I want to know about you. I want to know about your kids, your family, the legacy you're trying to build, right? And I want to be a part of that. And so, we don't even call them clients. We call them extension to our family.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's the biggest difference.
No, that's huge. Because I mean, when you run your business like as based off of just transactions, right? And you're focused on the dollar and that's your main focus, right? You do lose that sense of relationship, that sense of customer service to a degree, and then that starts to have a ripple effect into your team and so forth. But the clients can feel it, whether you are super directed about it or not. Like I was the same way. Like when I had my personal training company, I was always about my clients. I would have people offer me to pay me 3 times my session rate to basically take someone else's session. I was like, honestly, I'm not about that. Sorry. Like it's their session, they have it, right? For me, it's like, the way I look at it on my training side was like, someone might be paying, let's say, $60 for an hour, right? They've been with me forever, right? You're offering me $180 for the hour. It's like their $60 might be $300 to you, right? In terms of wealth. So it's like, why am I going to just judge it off of dollars versus like just the relationship? Like they want to be here. They're trying their best. It's like they have the spot, and then that led to referrals and all that kind of stuff, right?
And for me, it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because and listen, there's a time to grind and do that, right? But for me, I took that to the next level, and I stopped existing, right? And so the clients were the only ones that were existing, right? They were my 100% focus, and so then I started neglecting not only myself, but I started neglecting family, and so keeping a boundary, just to not use the word balance, right? But keeping boundaries and understanding like, hey, you're absolutely the most important person when I'm in front of you, but right now I'm with my family and they're the most important person, right? And just like, I gave you the time, I would expect you to respect the same respect for my family or for whoever I have in front of me. And so just kind of putting that out there and not being afraid to tell customers like, hey, listen, I could get to this tomorrow, right? Like I appreciate it, but I'm at my kid's softball game or I'm at my kid's birthday party, right? Can this wait till Monday or whatever the case may be? They actually appreciate it because they also have lives, right? And they also have families. But in the past, I didn't know how to separate that, right? So whether I was at a birthday party or whatever the case may be, you called out, I jumped, I said later, right? Like nobody was more important than the client calling.
So I mean, I think that's a trap that a lot of like early entrepreneurs get into. I mean, I was a victim of it as well. You know, I was guilty of it as well. But like you said, when you're able to, again, using the word balance, and I want to start right there. Like, balance doesn't necessarily mean the same thing for everyone.
Right.
Right. So like, balance doesn't mean that it's 50 this, 50 that. It's your balance is your balance, mine's mine. Like, if you're working 12-hour days and you dedicate, you know, an hour or two to your family, and that's your balance, that works for your family. Okay, that may not work for me.
Right.
But so I think balance is just kind of used a little loosely a lot of times.
Right.
But you do have to realize that when you're with a client, like even when I was personal training, if I was with a client, I didn't answer my phone for another client. I didn't text another client. Okay. And honestly, it bugged me, not that someone would come up asking about personal training and stuff when I was with a client. It didn't bug me that they're asking, but it bugged me a little bit because I didn't want to take my attention away from my client at the time. Right. So I would literally get their phone number, like, all right, cool, I'll text you later. Like, sorry, I can't talk right now. And that was just something that always just didn't sit well with me. It was you know, kind of splitting my attention. But at the same time, if a client called and I was with my family, it was the client, right? And so when you start to separate that, your clients appreciate it because they know how much attention you give them. And so when you're giving that to someone else, they're not like, okay, well, the client's always right. Give me a call right now. It's like, no, they know there's limits to this. Yeah. So I think that's huge. And once you can separate that and find your balance, like, I think you'll relieve a little bit of your stress, at least your home stress.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So what was that like defining point for you to realize that balance? Like, what was the shift, or what happened when, you know, all of a sudden you realized, like, okay, I need to stop, you know, answering every call?
Well, as everything else that usually happens in life, is some tragedy has to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was the loss of my mother. It was very sudden, and I realized it was like, and there was a period after her passing that I got even more lost within myself. But it was at that point that I realized, like, I've put everything on hold, right? Because I was trying to build something. And while doing that, you know, I neglected, you know, the one that was the people that were most important in my life, right? And so obviously, you know, she left with a lot of unanswered questions for me, a lot of things that I wish I would have told her. You know, no regrets whatsoever. It was just like, wow, like, I always chose X versus, you know, what really was important to me at the time. And so I think for me, that was the shift.
Okay. No, I mean,
and it wasn't overnight, right?
No, definitely. I mean, and I'm sorry about your loss. I mean, I lost my mother a couple of years ago too, so I completely know what it's like. Yeah. And not diving too much into that, but I know from my experience, people assume that when you lose someone, whether it's, you know, mom, a family member, a friend, that everyone goes through the same grieving patterns, right? For you said you got a little more lost, right? And looking at my experience, like, I may have gotten more lost, but my lost wasn't necessarily like, what am I doing? It was like, I just dove into just work, and it was like, I didn't do anything else. I didn't want to talk to anyone. Like, and so what is your thought process on, like, you know, that for people, because it's not necessarily even when you lose someone, right? When just something that happens, right? People have an emotional response that's different. But what is your take on, like, you know, dealing with, you know, or finding your way back or finding your way forward after an event or a tragedy?
I think that the biggest thing is learning how to pause, right? It's very hard for us to pause. Life comes at us at 100 miles an hour, right? We hear this a lot, like, I don't have enough time to do X. I don't have enough time to do Y. It's really pausing and understanding, like, what is it, number one, what is it that I want, right? What is it that's holding me back? And rather than running from it, you know, for you, it was digging yourself back into work and, like, I don't want to talk to anybody because you didn't want to deal with the pain, right? And so you distracted yourself. And so sometimes we just have to pause and realize, like, hey, it's okay, I need to feel, right? I need to go through this path so that I could be redefined for whatever's next, right? Because everything happens for a reason. And so a lot of it is just, for me, it's just being able to pause, right? Pause, understand, reflect, and then start taking action, right? I'm also not saying to stop living, but, you know, just pause for a second and feel, right? And allow yourself to be human.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not machines.
No, definitely, and I agree with that. And honestly, for any situation in life, when you're saying pause too, like it doesn't necessarily need to be after a tragedy, right?
Yeah.
Something happens, there's, as an entrepreneur, there's fires in the business all the time, right? And so if you're not taking that pause or taking basically a step back to basically see the bird's eye view and make a logical step forward, and you're just reacting off of emotion, you're going to have more of a reactive mindset versus trying to be proactive, or even just making your next step, and being like, okay, I understand this happened, I get it, I'm taking my time, or I need to make this step because this is what we need to do, versus freaking out, right?
Yeah, it's seeing the light regardless of how much darkness there is, right? So, like you said, right, it doesn't necessarily has to be a loss, but you could be going through a season in your life where you seem lost, right? And again, it's pausing or just slowing down, right? And then seeing that light, because the light's always going to penetrate, right? Like it doesn't matter how dark it is. Like I run at 3 a.m, and I love running at that time because my understanding is that's the darkest part of the night, but I could still see in front of me. Like, it doesn't matter how dark it is, I could still see the steps in front of me. And so, sometimes I can't run because my knees give out, right? And rather than beating myself up, it's understanding like I just need to slow down.
Right.
So I could walk, I have 2 options, right? I could turn around and beat myself up and go home and cry, or I could just continue the path, even if I have to slow down and walk rather than run, right? But continuing to move forward.
Man, running at 3 a.m, bro,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like, are you running on where there's street lights?
On the middle of the street, bro.
Dude, that's nuts. No,
middle
thank
of
you.
the street.
Like, I'm all about fitness, but 3 a.m. runs, like, I'll take a rain check. Like,
Well, I'm up, so.
see, but I'm on the, I guess that also depends, because like I'm usually up working or doing other things, or that's sometimes even like my workout. I mean, I've posted workouts at midnight or 1 a.m. finishing, but that's when I'm working out and then going to bed.
Yeah.
Right. And you're doing the opposite. You're waking up an hour or two later and starting to work out.
Yeah.
So let's dive back into the business though, because honestly, you've come so far, and honestly, I'm still watching you continue to grow, which is crazy, because a lot of people, after 5-10 years in business, they think, their business is the best it's going to get, right? And I'm watching you still in the RV. I mean, you're in a mastermind, even though you're a veteran in the game. Like, you have so much knowledge to already bring, and you're still able to receive knowledge as well. So let's take it back to like the foundation, right? When you launched your business, was it just you? Was it you and a partner? And then how long was it before you guys hired an employee?
So when I started in 2006, it was just me, solo, and I was a control freak, or still kind of am, and so nobody could do it the way I do it, right? I think it was maybe 06, 07, you got to remember, at least out here in California, the housing market was crazy. People were just balling out of control, right? And so we kind of blew up a little early. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just riding a wave, right? And so I brought in the first employee, maybe 8 months to a year in, just to kind of help me. But it was literally just like, hey, hand me this tool. I was still the one doing all of it, wearing all the hats. I don't think that I brought in somebody that was different, or that changed my mindset until maybe, I don't know, a couple years later, which is now my business partner, right? I think it was, we keep losing track. I think it was 13, 14 years ago now. But he came in, and I really was like, let me teach him everything that I know, right? And rather than me doing it and telling him to hand me a tool, it was like I would show him, and then I'd be like, here, you do it, right? And then he would do it differently, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't have done it like that, but that actually works. And that's actually faster or better, or whatever the case may be. So then I started changing my mind at that time. And so, it's about levels, right? And so it was recognizing that I can't do this alone. So a few years after, we sat down, and I said, hey, you could go and do this on your own, or we could do this together and really blow it up to the next level, right? I'm the visionary. He's the, what's the other one called?
Integrator.
Integrator. He's the integrator. And so, I bounce ideas like crazy, and he slows me down and says, hey, okay, great. that first idea was a great idea. Let's concentrate on that.
Yeah.
How do we take that into fruition, right? And so just realizing that, you know, there's other people that, again, do things better than you do, and you stick to your lane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, it took a while.
Okay, so there's two parts I want to go into that. First part being, you know, you hired the first employee, right? And there was, you know, maybe it was partly to say you have an employee, right? And then mainly it was like, or mainly it was you didn't know what to do with them because, again, especially as business owners in the beginning, we don't think other people could do it better than us. But what is your philosophy on, let's say if someone's trying to hire their first employee, or if you hire another employee, what is the process, or what is the mindset of why do you need employees? What are you looking for in an employee? Like, who do you hire?
So you hire for where you're going, first and foremost, not for where you're at, right? We all tend to panic and realize, hey, I got a lot of fulfillment to do, so I need to hire people. So you first off, you hire for where you're going. Second is, I think there's talent everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's talent, right? You go to the supermarket, you go to the park, right? And you start engaging with people, you realize like there's talent everywhere.
Right.
And so it's understanding your core values, understanding the vision that you have and where you're trying to go. And then by talking to these people and getting to know them, you realize what their values are and how they could bring that value to your company and really make your vision into fruition, right?
Right.
And so, you know, it really depends. I don't really care what industry you're in.
Right.
Is hire for where you're going, and then hire the people that tie into your values, right? I heard somebody, I think it was on a podcast, that said, you know, they found somebody, it was a valet guy, right? And you know, he called the company and said, hey, I just wanted to tell you guys, like, this guy is like went above and beyond, you know, what he needed to do, and if you guys don't treat him right, I'm gonna hire him. He did end up hiring him. He was like, I didn't even have a job or a position for him, but I just wanted the guy to be around me because he was such a great individual. So he saw the vision, right? Now
Right.
he's like, you know, his right-hand man or something like that. But, you know, it's just understanding the value that people bring to the table.
No, definitely. And so, can you explain, I mean, I know what you mean on it, but can you explain, like, hire for where you're going? Like, what does that mean? Because even if you're hiring for talent, it's like, yes, there's talent everywhere, right? But what does hiring for where you're going mean? Like, when you're bringing on an employee, what is the purpose of bringing on another employee?
For me, it's to create a legacy,
Okay.
right? Not only for the company, but also for them,
Okay.
right? Changing their trajectory of their lives, right? And so when I say hire for where you're going, is we're all visionaries at one point or another. And so we know where we're at and we know what our goals are, right? And so if our goal is to buy back our time,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Then that's where you're going,
Right.
right? And so you bring in people that will take task off your plate so that you could buy back some of that time, and you're elevating them so that they could be better and create a legacy for their families and whatnot.
No, I mean, that's huge. That's exactly where I was, wanted you to go with it, because that's, I think, especially as, even you face it as well. Like, in your first hire, it's like you hire an employee and you think it's all of a sudden your business is just going to grow, right? You have to be able to break down what are you doing, what can you offload, or what should you offload so you can focus on the more key roles. Not necessarily what you like just because you like to do it, but what things are just the tedious tasks that you could hire someone to do so you have more time to basically propel the business forward, right? And I think that's where, like, that first hire comes in and takes some of the work off, and then again, you teach them. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, but as you continue to hire, it's taking something else off your plate or someone else's plate, so everyone starts leveling up together, right? And you're creating a legacy for yourself, but also for them, and allowing growth, in opportunity and skill sets for them as well.
Yeah. And there's never a right time, right? It's just like business, right?
Yeah.
When you want to go start your own business, there's always a but. But this is going on right now, or my family's young, right? You just have to do it.
Right.
You just have to pull the trigger, right? And you'll figure it out as time goes by. And so your new hire is the same way. Like, I can't afford it right now. I need more clients. Well, you could get more clients if you had somebody doing
Right.
the stuff that's keeping you from going out and getting new clients.
Exactly.
Right? And so there's always an answer to it. And so the time is now, right? If that's where you're at, if you're thinking about, hey, I need to bring somebody else in, like, stop thinking and start moving.
Right.
Right? Because it's going to elevate you. That doesn't mean the first person you hire is the right person that's
Right.
going to stay with you, but you're going to also learn how to hire people and how to bring in and attract talent that is going to elevate you in your business.
No, definitely, and you'll learn how to lead over time as well, right?
Right.
Like you're not going to be the best, business owner, or CEO, or boss right out the gate, right?
Right.
Either you might be too nice, you might be too, too structured or too strict, but you start to learn that balance over time, and the bigger your team gets, you start to learn that you have to deal with different personalities, each person has their own goals. Like some people are money driven, some people are just incentive driven or recognition driven. It's like, so you got to figure out those different personalities, but you only learn that when you're doing it. Like you could read about it, but you learn it when you're doing it. So that's a huge piece. But I did want to rewind to the other aspect that you had mentioned when you started your business, right? You started it on a wave, right? It's crazy because you started on a big like up wave, but you also then hit, I'm assuming, a big down wave.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So what was that mindset? Because in business, we have seasons, right? And the seasons might be a month, 2 months, a quarter, or even a year. But that was an extreme, and especially for you being a young entrepreneur, what was that wave like, and how did you basically say, even on the down phase, I'm going to keep going?
I think that the biggest thing was I fell in love with meeting people and doing the business side of things, right? And so when '08 hit, and again, yeah, it was a hard hit. It was a punch to the mouth for sure, right? I realized then that I had options, right? Like I needed to continue on, and so I started reaching out to seeing where I could fit in, right? And so I went all the way down to like doing repair for Best Buy and Staples and Dell, right? And so, again, little did I know at the time is I was building a database, right? Because they were giving me client information for free. They were paying me for it, right? And so that's really, I had to sit down with myself, going back to pausing, right? I had to sit down with myself and really realize, like, okay, where is this going? I had a young family at the time. Lean on Adriana a lot, and kind of sat her down and I said, hey, I have no money. We're back to being broke. Like, I need you to, carry the family for a little bit and really have those conversations and, stuff that she didn't want to hear, stuff that I didn't want to say. But, really understanding that, again, I didn't know this back then, but it was a season and I could visualize an exit. I just didn't know how I was going to, go get past it, right? But a lot of it is faith, bro. I'm a person of faith, and so leaning on my Creator and understanding that, hey, you put me here. If I don't belong here, if this is not what my calling was, then you'll guide me to where I need to go. But in faith, I'm gonna keep moving forward, and we'll see where this takes us.
No, that's awesome. And I think what's huge too is like you started basically going outside of what you normally did, like to find new clients. And so that down phase, it can either crush you or it can basically let you take that, or you can take that step back and let it create opportunities because you have to find something to make it work, right?
Yeah.
Just like when you were an employee and your boss wanted you to learn new skills, like that's the same asset. As an entrepreneur, sometimes those hard hits or those seasons make you learn something else or explore another avenue, and sometimes that all of a sudden becomes another aspect of your business, even on an up season, right?
Yeah, totally.
So that's huge. What do you think about the importance of, because I've met your wife and stuff, and she's awesome, right?
Thank you.
And when you were did you guys get married when you were an employee and everything like that, or?
So, fun fact, we're not married.
Okay.
But yeah, we were together when I was an employee.
Okay.
So we had a son in '02. Mm-hmm. So I was still working for the Fortune 500 company, and so she also thought I was crazy when I came to her and said, hey, by the way, I quit my job. So that was the other one, right? I've always been that guy that does things and then tells people at the end,
Yeah,
like,
that's how I
hey,
am.
I did this, and it didn't work or it worked, right? And so I went to her by the time I had already quit, right?
Right.
It was like, I quit, but here's the good part, right?
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. So we've definitely gone through some rough patches, as a couple. But man, she is wonderful. She's stuck it through, through all my ups and downs, and like I said, at a point, she carried the family, right? Like, she's always had a good job, and she continued to move forward and not let me go, right? Because really was what she kept me around, but also realized that, hey, I think there's, again, with faith, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
No, definitely. And so, what do you think, like not your recommendation, but your advice, right? Because some people get into entrepreneurship, maybe they're early in their relationship, right? So now that's two different beasts that you're, conquering at the same time. But I mean, same thing. I had my personal training company and then opened up the business, which even though yes, it's both, an entrepreneur. Like I was the business, now I have a business.
Right.
And so my wife was, similar to your story, like our relationship. But what is your advice, or what is your take on like having a solid like support system at home? Like yes, you'll have your friends, yes, you'll have your networking groups, but if you're in a relationship, like what is your take on like having that support system?
It's being upfront, bro. Being vocal, right? Mm-hmm. Vocalize where you're going. Vocalize what you're struggling with, right? Get vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. If you can't get vulnerable with the person that you live, then it's gonna be hard for you to get vulnerable with anybody else. And so, really like understanding, here's the season where we're at, and here's the plan to get out, right? And I could foresee this season being 6 months, a year, whatever the case may be. Are you in this with me? Because you're really not doing it on your own. We all try to say that, I built this, right? Like my family helped me, right? And so if she would have left me back then, like I don't know where I would be.
Right.
I don't think I would be here. Who knows, right? It's a hearsay, but it's really like not doing what I did, right? Take my advice and do the opposite, right? Go to them early, right? Explain to them what's going on, whether it's a financial situation, a mental situation, whatever the case may be, dude, is just talking to people and being vulnerable and allowing them to help you, right? Mm-hmm. Because we love the feeling of helping people, but we hate getting help, or at least I do, right? And what I keep learning is that I need to allow people to bless me the way I love to bless people and get that same feeling that I get, that same high.
No, definitely, and I agree with that, because your family, especially if you're, your husband or your wife, they want to be a part of every aspect of your life, right? And so opening up with them, like you don't have to tell them every small detail of every small fire, but like if you're struggling, or if you're going through something, like they want to know, and letting them in creates that bond of now they feel a part of your team. Like yes, you may have employees and you have a team at work, but now they get to feel like they're a part of it, and they want to be that support system for you, because you can be their support system. You hear everything they're saying, but if you're not allowing it to go both ways and be an open bridge, then again, it starts to create a disconnect, right? Yeah. And so now, and I experienced it too, especially in the beginning, my wife would just thought everything was fine, or would just, be like, yeah, I don't know what's going on with work. Like how is everything? I'm like, good, like, because you want to kind of turn everything off. But at the same time, once I started opening up, it definitely, our relationship got stronger. Like how stressed everything is just less, and they are appreciative of it as well, right?
Yeah, because at the end of the day we're not asking them to fix it. Right? We're just saying, hey, I'm in the mud right now, and I need you to walk with me in this mud for a little bit, right? Because I need your help, right? Because walking this by myself is going to be very, very difficult. And so back to the same thing, like closing ourselves off, right? Like it's not your problem, it's my problem. I have to fix it, right? Like I'm not asking you to fix it, but would you walk with me, right? And have an empathy, or have empathy on me, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And even sometimes, because I'm a very straightforward person, like, yes, I'm nice and everything like that. Some people take my straightforwardness as like rude or, whatever. And I'm like, look, I don't mean this in any which way. It's just my opinion or whatever. But so when a situation arises or something happens, like, and I like tell my wife about it, she's like a very passive person, very, she's basically my nice side, right?
Okay.
So like before I'll have conversations with people, or if I'm frustrated or something, like I'll tell her what it is, and I'll tell her what I'm gonna do. And sometimes like she is my voice of reason,
Right.
or she is that person that will be like, look, like, but what if this happened and this is why? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh damn.
She gives you a different perspective.
Yeah, and sometimes even that, it's not that they're trying to fix your fires, but sometimes they just want to give their 2 cents,
Right.
and let them take it. Don't take it. It doesn't hurt them, but
Right.
if it allows them to feel better because they're giving you some advice, then by all means, right? So I think that's huge.
You get them to buy in, right?
Right.
So we want our employees to buy in, but we forget to have our family also buy in.
100%, because I mean, we have the vision in our head,
Yeah.
right? Like God put the vision in our head, and we have to have other people buy in to continue our vision,
Yeah.
right? And that's not just our team, but also our family, because there is seasons, there is stress. Like running a business is not easy. I know on social media, people say being an entrepreneur is, the best way to be. It's like, it's give and take,
Right.
There's a lot of stress that comes with it, but if that's your thing, then, go for it. But it's not for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But your family has to buy in too, and they have to feel that they're a part of it, because if not, then again, you're working for them, and they're not into the vision. So all of a sudden you get to where you want to go, and then you don't have that relationship anymore.
Right. Or there's some resentment, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's huge. But one thing I want to ask before we wrap this up is, I know you've been dropping a lot of knowledge already. If everything basically that you've established, the relationships that you've established, everything like that has been basically hypothetically wiped, right? If you could leave one message basically as your legacy, what would that message be?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. So if everything's white, that it's okay to start over, right? Because every finish line is masked as this new starting line, right? And so just because things get taken from you, it doesn't mean, you have to stop. It's a new opportunity for you to grow into what this next chapter is. And if you approach it with gratitude, you realize that you get the opportunity to start over and do something different, right? And experience something new. And so it's all about the perspective that you walk into something, right? So if you're negative, you're gonna get negative results.
Right.
But if you approach things with gratitude that we get the opportunity to be here, right, and make a difference for one person, right? Like I always tell people, like, if sometimes you just have to smile at someone to change their life, right? And so it doesn't matter what gets taken away from you, start over and start with gratitude.
No, that's huge. That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much for, one, not just coming on, actually stopping by the gym and taking the time out of your day. I know you were working earlier today as well. But guys, make sure you guys leave a review, share it with a friend, and then, where can people find you, to get more information, if they want some stuff done in their home or in their business, with the confusing technology.
Well, I appreciate you again. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate the kick-ass you're going to give me in a little bit. But you can reach us at Active Networks LLC on all platforms, and then me personally at the real _ Adolfo. I always forget the underscore. So the real _ Adolfo, and then the business at Active Networks LLC.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, brother.
Let's get to this workout.
All right, let's do it.